Hey everyone, today I'm going to be going over Docker. Last time I talked about this was to how to set it up on your local machine on Windows, and I didn't really get into the nitty gritty of it. This video, I'll go over some of the basic stuffs and I'll try and do it in a quick pace. That way you can get all the information you need on why it exists, how to use it, and what you can do with it as well. There's a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. So what is Docker? Docker is your tool to run dedicated servers for your application without actually having dedicated servers. Instead of a fleet of pets that your operations people would actually be handling and taking care of that may die at any point and someone's going to be crying over it, you just have a bunch of mini ones that if it dies, you can bring it up and you have Docker already running on it with all the information that you need for it. Instead of virtual machines where you have the hypervisor watching all of the file system and hardware connections between each one, and then having that host OS for each machine, you just have the Docker daemon that sits between the host OS and then also your application. With virtual machines, you could, in theory, have a virtual machine that has a hypervisor running a virtual machine with a hypervisor with a virtual machine. Every layer you go in, the slower time gets for each one. Let's get into a couple terms that you'll see a lot of in Docker. The first one is Daemon. The daemon is the service that runs on the host OS. Daemons in general are just processes that are running in the background without any human interaction on the actual computer side. So that's what the Docker daemon's doing. It's just making sure it's running in the background to run containers. Images are a snapshot of a system. And the example of Docker is just a series of changes in layers one on top of another. So you'll see this when you actually write a Docker file, is that you're basically creating layer by layer by layer of what changes are necessary to it. Somewhat similar to a script, but it's a little simpler than that now. Containers are the actualization of the image. When you run a container, it's basically going to run all of those commands and make sure that it's up and running. It'll ensure that it's the same every single time, and then it will give you a command that you can run as the base for it. So for example, if it's a Python application container, you would run the container and it would automatically be running that application in the background as soon as the container comes up. Each container as well, while it's running on your machine, is self-contained. It has no interaction with any other container on your machine. The last thing is the CLI. The CLI is your command interface with Docker. It's how you run containers. It's how you build images. It's how you get into a container with a terminal and mess around with it a little bit if you want to. It's also how you can kind of list everything. I will go through a lot of the commands as well to give you a base knowledge of this. Let's get into some of the commands that you'll be running on a regular basis. The first one that you will mostly see is going to be Docker PS. Docker PS is what you're going to use to see what is running on your machine at any point. If you look at this output of what I have for what's currently running on my machine, it's a hot mess, but you can see we have container ID, image, commands, created, status, ports, and names. It gets a little mixed up because I'm making this big enough for you to see. Right now, what I have up and running is I have this container with a container ID. I have the image and that, yada, yada, yada. But the main thing here is that you can see I'm actually running a Kubernetes system on my machine called K8s Storage Provisioner, which that's the container up and running. The next one that you'll see a lot of is Docker pull. Docker pull is how you're going to make sure that you have the image that you want ready on your local machine. So in particular, you'll be pulling a lot from Docker Hub. That's how you'll make sure you get everything that you want. So I actually want to make sure I have, for example, let's get out an Ubuntu image. So we're going to go Docker pull and Ubuntu, let's go 20. I'll just get latest. So how this is kind of described here is you have Docker, pull, and then the image and the tag. Tag is how you get versioning of each one. the name is what actually you're going to get. So you'll get things like Ubuntu or a Python script or a Golang one. So we'll pull it, and it's actually going to be pulling layers for each one. So you'll see that we have one layer loading, and it's going to download each one individually to make sure that we have the right one. The next command that you'll use on a regular basis is actually Docker run. Docker run is actually going to build that image onto your machine and allow you to actually interact with it. So if I go Docker run -i and -t, so what -i and -t allow you to do is to jump in the terminal for that image. We're going to go Ubuntu, and I'm just going to go bin/bash. This tells it what shell it should run or what command it can run. So if you actually have your own application on here, you would put in the file path and it'll automatically run that image for you. But we'll do this, and as we can see, we are now in that container with a terminal, and I can do things like ls-al, kind of see what is on the file system. And if I, for example, echo hello, awesome, it pops in and says, hey, hello, I'm here. Fantastic. When you're actually done with it, you can then exit it by going just exit and enter, and you get yourself out of the context of that container. Having the commands is all and good, but the Dockerfile is where the actual meat and potatoes comes in. This is where you're going to make sure that you create your own application and can run it on Docker proper. The Dockerfile has a few different commands that will run in sequence. The first one is the one that must always be there, and that is from. What from does is you give it a base image to work off of. You can do the basic of all of them and just have an OS that you're going to run from, or you can actually go from like scratch. Scratch is nothing. You have to build it completely yourself. But most often than not, you're actually going to use Ubuntu something. I'll use Ubuntu as my base for this. And we'll go latest. Now, the next command is going to be something like copy. What copy does is, working in the context of the Dockerfile, so the directory, it will take files that are in that directory and paste it into your container or into the image itself. So I'm just going to quickly create a file that says it's hello.txt. And hello.txt is just going to be hello, I am in a container. And we'll just save that. We'll save that. And wait, I will just make sure that that's actually cool. I have just this one file that's going to be popped into there. We're going to actually copy that file into our image. So we're going to go hello.txt, the file there, and we're just going to paste it wherever it is decided that we have our workdir. On that, this is where we get to our next command in the Dockerfile, which is workdir. Workdir basically tells you I'm working in this directory, so I'm just going to make it root just to make my life easier for when we do this. But you can set it to /app/user/source/app, or make your own directory within the actual system. The next thing that maybe we want to do is run something. So we can run a command, which maybe for us will be something like, say, echo hello world. Just cause everyone likes hello world. There we go. There's other things that you can do as well. So you can do a command. And when you're actually working with VS Code and you have Docker installed, it will explain all these things as you're typing them out, which is extremely handy. Make sure you have the Docker extension pre-installed, and you'll make your life easier. So the Docker the command here will actually take a list of command here, takes a list of strings and runs it as a command. So I can do something like, let's say, I want to curl google.ca. I just have to make sure that it's a proper list. And this will actually run these once the container is booted up from start. Now, I can also copy more files into my command. Copy ... just says it's going to copy everything that's existing in the application or in the directory it's currently in into the container. Bada boom, easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I will not put that in. So here we go. This is just going to be basic. Has a couple run commands. These can be anything that you want, but we can do other things as well. So I'm just going to go, that is a vim command. So I'm just going to change into my correct directory. Docker testing. And I'm going to run the docker build command. So this is the next command that's actually really important. Docker build builds the image from the Dockerfile. So I will go docker build -f. So -f tells you what file to use. And then I'm just going to go dot. So the second file here tells you what Dockerfile to use. And this dot here tells you what context to run it in. So I will go like this, run it. And as you can see, it's actually going step by step. It is using the Ubuntu latest image from, goes to the next step, goes to the next step, goes to the next step, all the way through. Now, this has been built, but it has a weird name to it. I don't like it. So with the docker build command, you can actually name your files as well. So that way you're not just dealing with some random SHA. So I'm going to do this, and I'm actually going to go -t, and I'm going to say Mirlo test latest. And then I'm going to go dot. It's going to do the same thing, and as you can see, it successfully built it, and it also tagged it. So that way I can run this image through that command there. Now I will go docker run nearlow test. Actually, I'm just going to go -it and nearlow test. And we'll just do spin bash. So it ran it. Now I'm actually in my own container. If I go ll, if it gives it to me, you can see hello text is actually in here. It's run. It has been set up into the machine itself. As you can see, hello, I am in container. Boom. This is a basic image that you can build yourself and see how it actually is going to run. So there are some basic commands that you can actually run with Docker. Gives you a base idea of kind of what Docker is, as well as how to actually run on the command line, as well as build a simple Docker image. You can go into the references to see how each of these kind of commands kind of run and additional arguments. I always suggest trying to use Docker --help, which will give you all of the commands that you can run. Any command line interface will actually have that for you. As well, this gives you a basic Docker file to work with and kind of build from there. Again, go into the documentation. I'll have that all linked into the description below. But this gives you some context to start working with Docker. If you want more, make sure you like this video in particular so that way I know that more Docker stuff is going to be necessary. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. If you have any feedback or a particular small issue, comment down below and I will try and get back to you. As well, subscribe for more videos. Watch the next video for more fun as well as we learn more about DevOps. If you want to support the channel or you have a larger issue than just a simple comment will do, go to buymeacoffee.com/Nearlo. Link is down in the description and I will try and get back to you, or you can just feed the fiend and give me coffee. For now, that's all. Have a good one.